President Jacob Zuma has reiterated the African view that the continent deserves to have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Well, since the UN's inception, it's had only 5 permanent members that all wield veto powers. That is the US, China, Britain, France and Russia.
In a speech that clearly reflected his frustration at the slow progress of the UN reform, President Zuma appeared unrestrained.
It is unacceptable and unjustifiable that more than 1 billion people in the African continent are still excluded as permanent members of the key decision-making structure of the United Nations Security Council.
Taking issue with Europe, which has 700 million people, but 3 permanent members.
The UN cannot pretend that the world has not changed since 1945. We are no longer colonies. We are free, independent, sovereign states.
Showing solidarity with the Palestinians, the president thanked the UN for allowing its flag to be raised and said the Palestinian question needed to be urgently addressed.
There can be no peace, security and development in the Middle East without the resolution of the Palestinian question.
On the meddling in the internal affairs of Syria and in North Africa, facing an outflow of refugees to Europe, the president didn't hold back.
The current situation in Libya and the Sahel region is a direct consequence of some members of the UN Security Council not heeding informed counsel from the African Union.
The president also called for action on climate change. The UN conference will take place in Paris later this year. The United Nations is set to appoint the new Secretary General next year. President Zuma says a more transparent and inclusive process is necessary to enable meaningful participation. Mzwandile Mbeje, SABC News, New York.